Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. This is your host, Andrew, and today, very excited to welcome Deputy CEO and Chief Real Estate Officer at USL, Justin Papadakis, to the show. We're going to talk about the USL's role in the American soccer landscape. Justin, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So let's start. Let's get to know you here. Let's introduce you to our audience. Let's take it back a little bit with your earliest memory of the game of soccer.
Well, soccer's been a critical and ever-present part of my life. And take it back to my dad, who's our CEO. He came from a poor family in Greece, and they didn't have a lot. So when he was young, they immigrated over to Canada, and again, didn't speak the language. They didn't have any money, but he happened to be a great soccer player, and was able to get into a high school, then a college. Then he played in the old NASL, and then was able to coach law school in Akron, or coach the soccer team at Akron, so he could go to law school. And so, and then he ended up having a very successful career. And so growing up early on, I always knew that soccer transformed my parents' lives, and by extension, my life. So it always had this, very special place, and one that we knew growing up that we wanted to give back to the game that gave our family so much. And so through the USL, that's what we get to do every day. So we're very blessed by that, and get to build this game alongside people like yourself, who are really contributing to creating the environment for the explosive growth of soccer that we're going to see here, I think, on full display with the World Cup next year.
Yes, huge event, huge opportunity that we've been chatting with a lot of our guests about. And I'm sure you feel similarly. It's like preaching to the choir, but a lot of trends that excite me in American soccer right now. I don't think we've seen a time quite like it. Before we get into your specific role as Deputy CEO, Chief Real Estate Officer of the league, let's just do a big picture introduction, not only for people who may already be aware of the USL and the many clubs and tiers that the league is offering, but also for people who might not be quite as familiar. And I'd like to hear it through you. So what do you think is kind of the role, the place of USL now in the larger American soccer landscape?
Well, I think we play a critical role. We're the only league that has both men and women, youth, all the way up to pro, and we're bringing professional soccer, closer to home. And so for most of our cities, we are the top level of soccer. And then cities with MLS teams, for example, we are the professional soccer opportunity in the submarket. So in Los Angeles, you have two great clubs with LAFC and Galaxy. We're in Orange County. We are in the Antelope Valley, and more cities to come. And same thing in Dallas or New York. So I think there's the differentiator is that excitingly in 2028, we're going to be having our Division I league start. We're going to be having promotion relegation start. And so, I think, talking about soccer, before, when we started this journey back in 2008, in the American construct, there was major league sports and minor league sports. And as your audience knows very well, the Spanish league, the German league, the Italian league, and soccer, they don't consider themselves minor leagues to the Premier League. They're just other leagues. But that concept didn't really exist. And so when you look at Europe, which is about the same population size and geographic size and population size, there's 37 just Division I leagues, not to mention lower leagues. So when you take that same area in the United States, where we're going to have, on the men's side, the MLS and our three leagues, on a per capita per team basis, there's certainly a huge demand. And I think really importantly, just because how the game is developed, soccer fans are different than European fans, where, if you grow up in Manchester and you're a City supporter, you're not also a Real Madrid supporter. That's not allowed. In the United States, I think you can have two favorite teams. You can have your local club, whether you live in Greenville or Phoenix or Antelope Valley, and then you can also have your favorite club of the best in the world, whether that be City or Real Madrid or a team in Mexico. So I think that's the exciting part about how soccer's developed, and importantly, I think we're only getting started on what's going to be one of the top soccer countries in the world.
Recently, with this documentary series we've been working on of going to all the host cities before the World Cup to talk about the culture and community there, it's given me an opportunity to get to know a lot of these different USL stories, whether it's a brand new club, like someone like a Portland Hearts of Pine and what they're doing up in Maine at a USL League One level, whether it's Vermont Green and USL2, all the support they're garnering there. But then you have clubs that have been around for 15, 20, 30 years, which in a professional context in the United States is quite an accomplishment, right? But I think a key thing that comes out a lot from a lot of these teams, whether it's an older, let's call it like a more of a legacy team, or kind of brand new, is that the focus on local, the focus on deepening that connection seems to come out. What do you see as from a league level? Is that something that is intentional of, hey, always being kind of in contact with clubs in that sense? Or do you think that clubs just kind of get it that, hey, USL has to kind of create this stronger fan-led connection? And what are kind of some of the ways that you see that, and what excites you about this current period in the USL?
Well, I think it's definitely a very intentional strategy. We really work hard to be community-driven clubs. And so, as you mentioned, even beyond our professional clubs, we have equally relevant pre-professional clubs. And so Vermont, I was at a game in Annapolis, Maryland this year with 13,700 fans and supporters come for a new League Two club in Annapolis. You mentioned you're going to Columbus, Georgia. So when you see the power of soccer from professional clubs down to pre-professional clubs, and obviously the great youth soccer clubs that we have in the country, that's what builds a sport. And so we are excited to play a big part in that because it's a different strategy than the MLS and NWSL, but one we think is really critical for the development of the sport. And so that's what our staff here at the USL, what we work on every day is really trying to be important community assets within our communities. And I think those stories are reflected in the professional side. And I think important to note, men and women. And then in our pre-professional side with, Vermont Greens and Ballards and Annapolis's. And I think you'll see more to come next year, just new communities coming online across all of our across pre-professional and professional, that now we have professional soccer in their communities. And I think it's really important that they can go see it, feel it, and have a strong local club within your community, not one that's 2 hours, 3 hours away in a big market, so to speak. But you have your own club, and because that club is a really reflection of who the community is today, and that's very different, I think, even post-pandemic to where the community was several years ago. Like I remember when we were at the announcement of Portland, Maine, of the 200 people that were there, I think at least 10 or 12 people came up to me and said, I moved up here post-pandemic and from New York, and now like Portland's my home. And I can't wait. And I was so excited to hear that professional soccer was coming to Portland. Like, this is my team now, because this is my community now. This is where I'm going to live. This is where I'm going to raise my kids. And you can see the difference of a community driven club. Like I always tell our friends that are non-soccer fans, that when you go to baseball games, the atmosphere in the crowd is very different than when you go to a Portland game, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's electricity, there's an engagement, there's a soundtrack, excitement and passion that is so, I think, in many ways unique to soccer, and one that we're really proud to have a large part of that within our ecosystem of USL.
I'm glad you brought out two pieces here that I wanted to connect, Justin. So one is you mentioned community asset, which we'll get into deeper more of how the real estate angle of a club becomes a literal community asset. But we all know as lovers of the game, whether it's, we just kind of came to it recently or it's a lifelong thing, like in our cases, that the club as a spirit, as the other fans, as the people you see week to week, that is an asset to the community. But then you also touched on how you describe it to non-soccer people. And I think that's a key distinction and something I've been experimenting with as, I'm going around and I'm meeting a friend in Atlanta who I'm staying with as I'm doing all these stories on the Atlanta soccer scene. And I'm trying to explain, okay, what is a Columbus United or an Apotheos or compared to an Atlanta United or compared to even college? Because speaking of Portland, something I heard there was like, we have minor league baseball, we have minor league hockey. We love those teams, but we know we're kind of a part of a larger system. Whereas like the best players that's developmental, they're going to move on and serve a larger club that's somewhere not in Maine. Whereas Hearts of Pine, any success, anything they have is just for Maine, right? So when you're at a social engagement, when you're meeting other people who are not soccer people, how do you explain kind of the role of USL? And I'm going to be taking notes here and see what ideas I can steal from you.
Okay, well, I think there's a couple of substantive differences. First, and I think to be a community-driven club, the players, who are the most important part, have to be members of the community. A big difference between minor league baseball and in a USL club, we'll just use Portland as an example. Those players live in Portland. A lot of them are on multi-year contracts. They raise their families in Portland. And so it's very different than a minor league baseball player, which is there for 1 week, 1 month, 2 months, and they're moving around all the time. And so when our players live there, they want to make that their home, and that means they're at the schools, they're at the hospitals, they're in at local soccer matches. The best players are training with the professional team, and so you have the players, which are a big part of obviously the fact that make these community-driven clubs actually in their communities. I think that's one important distinction. A second would be that in baseball, those players, they're the atmosphere there. They're there to develop players, and whether a pitcher needs to recover from injury, they're not that they're trying to lose the game, but they're not necessarily trying to win the game. They're trying to recover players and move them on to the next minor league team. Very obviously different in soccer, where our players, our fans show up every day and want to win, and the atmosphere and the crowd, that's you can sense that, feel that excitement, anticipation, tension at every match. And then third, I would say a huge part of the differentiating factor will come when we have promotion relegation. And so part of having an interconnected structure is that the structure is interconnected. And so we think of our match a lot here at the league office and with our clubs of how do we increase the amount of consequence for every match, right? So we've done some great work the past 2 years by implementing the Interleague Cup. And so those games, those are rivalry matches, they're derby matches, and you're playing for a cup. It's not just a regular season game, so to speak. And then once promotion relegation comes in, you have a lot of consequence, especially the back half of the season. Whereas in the American construct, it's very difficult for our soccer fans to wrap their head around, where the incentive structure is to lose, so you get a higher draft pick, right?
Sure.
That is just very antithetical to soccer fans, and it's hard for them to really think of that in that context. So I think we're really going to deliver authentic football to our communities. And again, our communities are our communities, right? It's not just a larger, MSA that you happen to live in. If you're in, if you're in Annapolis, there's, I think they're on a great track to go professional at some point. They're going to be able to, they want to show up for their fans so they can prove that they should be in the professional ranks, move up to the professional ranks. And there's no reason that they can't go from League One to Championship to Division One. And so when you have that consequence to the match, when you have that opportunity to get to the highest level, we think that's what sport is all about, and that's certainly what what football is all about, and that's what our fans and our supporters are all about. And so when you can blend that with their community, we think that that's going to be a huge, reason why there is just so much support for USL brand of football. And we saw that on full display, even pre promotion relegation, pre having our full network built out. Last year, our championship final in a smaller media market of Colorado Springs on CBS at 12 o'clock outrated the major league, kind of quote unquote, of the MLS final on Fox at 4 o'clock. And they had New York versus LA, the two largest media markets in the country. And so there is definitely this amazing groundswell of support for a different kind of football, a football that resembles the rest of the world, and one that, again, I think we're really in the early days of, because we, every year we look out every year for the next 5-6 years, we'll be opening up 5 to 7 new professional teams that will start play. Those are 5 to 7 markets that did not have access to professional soccer in their community. And so when you think of the millions and millions of people now that have access to it, it's going to be an exciting, next decade of football in the United States.
100%. And I think, specifically speaking of promotion relegation, it kind of serves not only the more like the soccer footy purist side of people saying this is what America has needed forever, but also, a parallel that we had Jeremy Allenbaugh on, USL Championship president, a couple of weeks ago. So anybody listening could check that out too. You got him beat with the full studio setup, Justin. So you're leading Jeremy there. But in that case, he gave the example a lot of like March Madness being so engaging for people, and that's a precedent that people understand of these type of really dramatic narratives, Cinderella stories, and that's what Pro Rel will, we hope, offer in an American context. So I think it's something to be able to reach out and engage people who aren't currently as locked into the game too. So it's really serving all of those levels. But let's talk about your role specifically on the real estate side as chief real estate officer of the league. Can you tell us first, give us an explanation of what that is, kind of your duties and responsibilities, and how that fits into the larger league strategy?
Well, from a starting point, when we started this journey back in 2008, we looked at Europe and the rest of the world. One of the big advantages they had was stadiums that are legacy stadiums, right? So downtown, great located stadiums that were, built 70, 100 years ago, which have, populations have obviously grown around them. So now building stadiums is hard, right? You have zoning, permitting, traffic, you got to build roads, you got to build utility infrastructure, electrical, plumbing, all of these things and stadiums are expensive. And so building all of this infrastructure here in the United States and doing it in, building 50, 70 stadiums in 10 years, that was a big part of the challenge, but also a big part of the opportunity. And we felt a very strong sense of responsibility to our fans and our future fans to make sure that they had a first-class fan experience. And so that means really thinking about the fan journey. As your footy audience will know, we as football supporters, we do things a little bit differently than American football, for example, right? So we don't necessarily tailgate, go to the parking lot, bring our own beer and hot dogs and grill out. Like that's not really a thing in soccer. And so we have to think about, we want to have bars and restaurants around our stadiums to make sure that they're destinations. Unlike baseball, where you have 8 stoppages of play, and even during play, it's not as continuous of action like in soccer. So a lot of the consumption happens before and afterwards. And then when we looked at baseball, the average fan is 20, 25 years older, right? So they're not going out as much afterwards. And so again, we had some challenges, but what we saw as the opportunity is to build modern stadiums. Fans consume sports and consume soccer differently than they did 50 years ago. Not all fans want seats, right? Because then I can only talk to my person on the left and my right. They want open bar flow area that they can kind of mingle and watch the game. Supporters sections are different. So premium is different. So we got to reimagine, I think, sports is how it is today and how it will be over the next 20 years. But then the part came of, okay, well, now we have to go actually entitle, build, and finance, billions and billions of dollars of stadiums. And so one really interesting thing, Andrew, I think that I noticed about, 6 years ago, there started to be a dramatic change in the staff level of our cities and counties, right? And the older generation, the baseball generation, kind of retired. And now the staff of our cities were soccer people. They played soccer, their kids played soccer, they love soccer. And so there was no let's pitch them on soccer. It was, oh my gosh, we need soccer here, right? And in the past, 3 years or so, the city managers, the mayors, the councils also started to flip over to the soccer generation. And so I think that's helped a lot. Our strategy has also been different than other leagues where I have a big and fantastic team on our real estate side, where we go out and work with our city, county, state partners for 1 year, 2 years, 10 years on putting these stadium anchored developments together. And so, again, these projects are hard, they're expensive, but they also are huge economic drivers. And so with, if you look at, different real estate sectors, and where I used to work pre-USL, that retail driven, your Walmart, Target, or malls. I think that people now, when people go out, they don't go out just to buy things, right? It's actually pretty easy to buy things on your phone. They go out and they want experiences. And so experience driven districts, I think, are really resonating with our city partners, because they're resonating with our apartment, people want to live in apartments. If you want to have a restaurant or shop, having it in a stadium district is a very attractive sector to be in. because people would go out, they want experiences. And so that's where we go have that conversation. And, again, I think one of the most, rewarding part of my job and, my team's job is that we get to bring billions of dollars of economic impact to our cities. So not only are we bringing a professional soccer club, but and that's going to be where people can go and have lifelong memories. But we also can bring much needed economic impact, and we can revitalize areas that have been like they couldn't get going for one reason or another, because there's always this chicken and the egg problem. You need people to have bars and restaurants. You need bars and restaurants to have people. No one wants to like go live in like have your apartment in an area with nothing around it. So how do you kind of break that? And the way to do it is to have a very compelling anchor that to build off of. And that is, certainly there with a USL stadium where we have men's soccer, women's soccer, concerts, festivals, all sorts of activities. There's a lot of apartments to live in a city, but there's only, probably the ones around a USL stadium that you can be inside an entertainment and experience district. And that's a very compelling value proposition for people. So lot of ground covered there, but it's something that, again, it's a very different strategy to have a league go out and work with cities for, 2, 5, 10 years to bring these districts online. But because we've done that, you'll see the largest and fastest growth of stadiums of any league in the world over the next 5 and 10 years.
On this podcast, we often talk about what makes this game so great, how it hooks us and makes us feel. And we can't forget that a piece of that is how the game looks. That's why we're proud to announce that this episode of the Because Football podcast is sponsored by Static Age Studio, a print shop and design studio that serves some of the biggest names out there. Think the Philadelphia Eagles, Nike, Puma, Stussy. Whether it's jerseys, training kits, fan tees, any merch you might need, Static Age Studio can help you with their high-quality screen printing, graphic design, embroidery, and DTG printing services all across the U.S. and international. Check them out on Instagram at Static Age Studio or head to www.staticagestudio.com to get started. And if you mention the Because Football podcast, you'll get 15% off your first order. Don't wait. Get in touch with Dylan and the team now to continue loving the beautiful game in style. Now, let's get back to the episode. It's really incredible when you talk about, again, the meaning, the relevance of a club and of a team. That's something we always try to come back to through this podcast, through all of our stories, like why does this game mean so much? You're giving a physical representation of that with these real estate projects, right? Because you're linking in the home of the soccer team with all these other things that people in the community want. So there's all this, not only other things and activities and experience for fans, but it also brings a larger community in and around it, and then start to convert and get some new fans from that as well. You made the interesting point of the generational change, a cultural change that you've noticed in leadership, right? Is that you don't have to sell. One of my questions here that I can mark off now is how to sell soccer to these governments. There's still room to grow, but there are enough people in decision-making positions, not only who are soccer fans already and want to be on the club ownership side, but are in government, are these decision makers of kind of approving these projects. And so they get it. Despite that piece of, again, I'm sure there's a lot that goes into that. What are some of the challenges that typically, whether on the league side, on the club side, on the land, the governmental piece development, like what are usually some of the big challenges and hurdles that you've got to overcome within this role?
These projects, even if the governmental support there, the land is available, the financing's available, these projects are just hard by definition, right? They generate a lot of traffic, a lot of noise, a lot of, so these projects are very different than building a Walmart or a Marriott. And so the challenges really come in making sure, again, because it's not just building a stadium. So if you look at kind of Gen 1 MLS stadiums. They built them out where they got the cheapest land and the most money. And so, unsurprisingly, I think, the correlation between the strongest MLS clubs from a brand perspective is quite highly correlated with, very difference between Gen 1 stadiums and Gen 2 stadiums. So if you look at in Dallas or in Denver, you have those early generation MLS stadiums that, were built, in I think suboptimal areas. And I think, especially for fans that are young, that, having a 45 or an hour Uber ride each way is tough, right? And so we really try to focus on building our stadiums in in the core, where again our fans are younger, they live closer to the core, and so that makes it even more challenging. But again, I think even more rewarding though, because we get to take land that no one's been able to figure out how to get it, how to get it going, and really create an amazing district. So those are the challenges. One of the aspects, just to kind of extend what I said about not having to pitch soccer, I think it's really, it was really exciting for me to see, was that we also have skipped now, and I can't think of a conversation that, with a city partner that I've had to do this. We don't have to explain or pitch women's soccer now, right? And so they see the value of women's sports. It's not a moment, right? This is a here to stay. And from fans, corporate partners, cities, they are equally, and in many cases, more excited about women's professional soccer coming to their city as the men. So I was really excited and gratified to see that that jump extended to the women's side as well.
With the World Cup coming, I've had this conversation a lot with people. What do you hope is the legacy, right? What do you hope is kind of the effect?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think to bookend 1994, as you mentioned, when the explicit purpose was to kind of get professional men's soccer launched, we bookend that with 2026. I don't think even in the most bullish projections that seeing, if you look back at 1994 and say, okay, this is where soccer is going to be in the U.S. in 2026, I don't think anyone would have seen, this amount of growth. I think what's exciting is, now the business side of sports, USL, MLS, NWSL, from a valuation perspective, they're firmly established and producing very good returns. That's really important because you need that to attract that private capital. It needs to be investable asset, right? And so sports teams, historically were kind of viewed as yachts or toys that that wealthy people had. I don't think that's a very solid foundation to build an asset class off of. What is a solid ground is when you have an investable asset. And so I think you attract a lot of private capital, you attract a lot of public capital, and the result of that is a better player experience and a better fan experience because of the amount of investment going into the sport. And so that is where I think you'll see in 2026, certainly at the USL, and I would extend it to any other league in the world, you'll see the largest growth in terms of new teams announced and stadiums built ever. And so that'll happen all within that context of the World Cup. But as you said, I think the important thing is not, just a single mile marker of, where the game is, how the World Cup was attended or something like that. It's going to be a year that that the country and the world, but folks in the United States, is focused on soccer. And I think it comes at a perfect time where, again, at the USL side, we have, as you mentioned, 70 active stadium conversations happening with cities across the country. And so it's, these projects all take a lot of time, right? So we're not at square one. These are very advanced conversations. And so now the sport is literally ready to break out at the stadium construction side. That will fuel, obviously, more men's and women's professional teams, which then flows down into having great clubs that our fans can support, and all the way down into driving more money into youth soccer to keep developing world-class players that we are still in the very, very, very early days of, which I think you'll see in the next 5 years, just a dramatic change in world-class players that are produced on the men's side. And the women's side, we're certainly already there. And so that will just be this incredible catalyst for fans that aren't soccer fans, right? That will be, converted over to be soccer fans. Again, that has to exist because the attention of the country is on the sport. But then that only goes so far if you don't have a local professional club, right? So the 1994 World Cup, it was great, but the fact of the matter was there was only, a dozen or so cities around the country that had professional soccer. Very different when you look at 2026, where, just in the USL, we're going to be bringing on dozens and dozens of new markets every year. And so that part is very different. And then again, you look at corporate partners, very different. And then youth players, I think, is also a very important area to discuss. When, soccer has this tremendous advantage over baseball, football, basketball, hockey, where we're the only sport with a direct connection between pro and youth. And now we're going to have hundreds of millions of dollars just in the USL of investment into world-class training facilities. Now, for both boys and girls, they have a pathway to go get first-class coaching in first-class facilities and get first-team minutes, all being here, in the United States. I'm, 40, and when I played there that wasn't, which isn't too long ago, right? In soccer terms, I had to go over to Portugal and like, several other people did, to get, professional environment that now exists here. And for any player, if you want to get to the top of the sport, I don't think there's a better place to do it than here in the United States and with USL. So that's what I think is very different to bookend, with 2026, is that now we have the table is set on every level to maintain that interest in the game that will come from having the World Cup here in the United States.
Yeah. And hearing you speak there, in a lot of the conversations I've had, it's not like just the top of the pyramid conversations. How do we kind of fill it out? It's a density conversation, right? It's a breadth, right, conversation of the spread there. And then I think to your point with the youth and another piece we didn't really talk about as much. We talked more with Jeremy on that conversation, but with the potential of promotion relegation, it's another incentive for clubs to develop players in their community and move them on, versus what we see a lot in this kind of what tends to be an insular at times type of youth development system we have in the US. It's very like revenue and profit driven. As we know, pay to play is an easy boogeyman, and there's a lot of like valid criticism of that. But it can kind of create tension with this idea of developing, of giving opportunity, but again, with not only the reach in various communities and markets around the country that USL is offering, but then this opportunity to really develop and move players up and down. It's very exciting. So it's a great time. It's great to hear kind of your thoughts and reflect. I similar, I think, changes I've seen in my lifetime to you as well. And I'm sure if we talk with your father and then that generation, I was fortunate when I was talking to Francisco Marcos, who's one of the founders of USISL and now USL, like kind of hearing his conversation, his thoughts, reading things through time. It's like certain pieces of this conversation have been a discussion in American soccer for a long time, but I think there's enough momentum now. I think there's enough capital as well, and that we're going to be able to just not just sustain, but grow this thing. So many trends that are exciting and that I'm really grateful for in American soccer right now, and certainly the growth of USL and expanding access to the game is definitely one of them.
Can I mention one more thing, Andrew?
Please.
For us as a sport in the United States to reach its potential, one other critical element that we think a lot about here at the USL is the absolute requirement to have top level talent off the field in our front offices. The sport, again, one very hard thing about a sport, to grow it, you need great players, coaches, leagues, front office talent, media partners, commercial partners. You need all this to happen at once. But I think, again, important for your audience, one of the things we think about a lot is just within USL, our massive growth, we need to have amazing talent on the front office side to accomplish it. And so, if for the audience, if you're looking at, I love the game, how can I help grow it? And if you want to be a part of it, day in and day out, outside of being a fan or supporter, whether you're in accounting, finance, sales, marketing, social, creative, consumer products, you name it, you kind of name the sector. We need great people to help move this sport forward. The foundation's there. We're gonna have the great stadiums, training facilities. We have all of these pieces. We really need great people to help execute and communicate and make these clubs community-driven clubs. So just a pitch out there to your audience that want an amazing career, that we have lots of jobs and we're going to have lots of demand for jobs over the next 10 years. It's something we think a lot about. And, again, I think, I speak for the, 1,000 or so front office, executives within our ecosystem. It's an amazing thing to get to do every day, as you do with your pod. And, I think there couldn't be a more exciting time to jump in and, help grow this game that we all care about so much.
Absolutely. And want to appreciate all the people who have really been in the trenches throughout American professional soccer. And then now who have gotten us to this point where it is just kind of booming and exploding too. Again, we've been fortunate through the podcast, through the documentary series we're putting out through YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, that, getting to connect with a lot of these people that are behind the scenes and making things tick. And there's a lot of awesome people. And like you said, just more opportunities coming. In terms of the talent conversation, I'm going to tweak this a little bit. We're going to go back on the pitch because we're going to move into one of our favorite segments here, Justin, our all-time five-a-side team. So again, the rules for yourself as a refresher for our listeners, you can pick any player. It could be an all-time legend. It could be somebody you played with back in the day that nobody would know about. It could be anybody. We've had a whole range. But then the key is you also have to choose yourself. And then this might tie into the next piece that there's sometimes a little bit of ambiguity about. you can have a goalkeeper, but you don't have to. It's your choice. So sometimes we go the sweeper keeper, sometimes we go 4 field and a goalie.
That's a tough one because as a former goalkeeper, there's no question that the goalkeeper is the most important position on the field, whether you're talking about full field or 5-a-side. So if my team's going to be a little bit weak since I'm going to be in the most important position, but I'll put myself in goal. Then I think, if we're doing 5-a-side, as a goalkeeper, I definitely want to make sure, I have a strong back. So, maybe like a Maldini and a Cafu at the back, hard to beat Zidane, in the middle. And then if it's small, definitely, if it's small, small sided, I don't know how you don't have Messi up top there.
No, for sure. Great shout. So I'm sensing maybe an AC Milan fandom, at least as through those glory days, for sure. And our final piece here, coming back to kind of the mission, the value, the name of the podcast and of our channel and media company, what we kind of seek to do, and kind of looking for the meaning and relevance of this game is if you can complete the sentence, because football.
Because football matters to our cities and our communities and our fans. And so, again, this sport, it's amazing what the power of a soccer ball can have. It can bring people together. It can create so much excitement, so much passion, and it can create billions and billions of dollars of economic development. And provide thousands of, jobs within the industry. So it's really amazing, what the power of a soccer ball can do. I think unlike, any other sport, and really anything else. So it has this superpower to do all of that. And I think that's, because football is we get to do that every day, and really be part of this magical sport that's changed my family's life, that's changed so many people's lives around the world, and one that we get to help change more lives week in and week out.
Absolutely. Thank you. Very well said. And thank you for your time and for sharing with us in general. I know we've got links for yourself and for the league in the show notes. So everyone want to follow what Justin's up to and the league and all these exciting new announcements that are really coming out like weekly at this point. It's incredible to see. But thank you so much, Justin, for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me.
And everybody listening and watching, thank you all again for being here. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.